Hello, welcome to a card discussion video. I got the idea to do one of these videos from a comment made on stream where someone was like, hey, why is spreading spores valued so highly? To which someone replied, that could be a whole video. Hey, here it is, a whole video. I'm going to try to keep this pretty quick, but this shouldn't take too long. I have, once again, the notepad out. I'm not sure what order these videos are going up in yet, but the notepad is here and ready to help me stay on track. We're gonna breeze through it here, hopefully. This video, as you can tell by the title and everything I've said so far, we're gonna be talking about spreading spores and why this card is valued so very highly by myself, as well as many others who play this game. If you enjoy, don't forget, feel free to comment any questions or concerns you have, or your praises for spreading spores yourself. And let's get into it. If you got any other cards you want me to review, please feel free to let me know. Spreading Spores is good for a lot of reasons, but well, let's just start with what's good about it, right? First of all, it says regen. This is one of the most important parts of it. It says regen, and as you can see here, if I bring up the search here, regen, there's only 4 cards in the game for Awoken that say regen. One of them is Restore, which is only regen 1, not very good. Wildwood Sap is obviously insane, however, it's a common, so you only have 2 chances to see it. But if you do get this card, it can win you the game on its own as well. And the other one's Awake, which is 3 cost. 3 cost is fine, but it's lacking a bit of flexibility. Let me move this here. That's good. So the fact that it says regen already skyrockets it very high above a lot of other Awoken cards, because a lot of times the easiest way for you to kill a boss is put a Thorned Hollow or an Awoken Hollow on the top floor, even this goes for Chased, but put a Hollow on the top floor, apply between 30 and 40 regen, and you win the game. Like, no joke, that kills a lot of bosses, because if you have 40 regen on a unit, as long as that unit has higher than 30 health, they get 10 rounds against Seraph. At least. More likely it's probably around 15 with the regen plus their max health if it's a Thorned Hollow or what have you, but in most cases 10 to 15 rounds is enough to kill Seraph, and once you get up into the really high numbers, 20 or like 60, 70 regen, it's just an auto win. So the example I want to give here, the in worst cases part of this, is a little. You gotta follow me here a little bit. I'm gonna paint you a mental picture, but I've done this math a few times. Actually, what I want to do is I want to talk about the upgrades first. That's right. I put these in the second slot here. However, I forgot to read 2 upgrade slots on Spreading Spores. At 2 energy, there are a lot of ways that you can do this. Right. You're always going to want to make sure that you target magic shops as soon as you pick this card up. At 2 energy, 4 regen, 2 spikes, 2, this card is not very good, in my opinion. This card's underwhelming at 2 energy, if you ask me. However, where it really starts to shine is when you give it a -1 and a double stack or a holdover, or if you just -1 it twice. Basically, there's a lot of flexibility on how you get this card to solo kill Seraph for you with the help of a unit whose health point is higher than 30. Because you can, if you get this early enough and you know that there's hell vents on the path, you can give it 2 -1s, so you can duplicate it twice, and then remove all of the other cards that aren't important to your game plan with priority, like remove regen or restores and torches or whatever you have in the deck. And then in a longer combat that's 8 rounds, you play the Spreading Spores 3 times. Say you're drawing 6 cards per turn, your deck has 24 cards in it for ease of access. First time through the deck takes 4 turns. You'll play 3 Spreading Spores, that's 6 regen. Say you play out, I don't know, let's say you play out like 10 cards. I think that's a reasonable number. You're down to 14 cards if you're drawing 6 a turn. You're down to 14, but then you're actually up to 17, and 6 of those are Spreading Spores. You'll draw through the deck again in 3 turns, which is going to have you play 6 Spreading Spores, where then you have, that's another 12 regen applied. And then the real gravy here is when you get into those last 3 turns, where your deck is, if you're following along, 12 Spreading Spores out of roughly 24 cards. You're going to get to play roughly, if you're on the top floor and the boss is relentless on the bottom floor at this point, you're going to get to play about. It's reasonable to assume you'll draw about 4 per turn. You're going to get to play roughly 12 spreading spores before the boss reaches you, which is going to give you 24 regen, 24 spikes on top of all the regen that you've put onto yourself before this, right? And obviously, this is a hypothetical. These numbers aren't exact, but you can get the idea, right? In essence, what you need to understand, and that's where you -1 it twice. The other ways are, of course, -1 in double stack or -1 in holdover. I'm not the biggest fan of the holdover line. I think -1 double stack and just thinning the deck out is a lot better, but you can make holdover work as well. But personally, I think -1 double stack is the best way to go, playing it 5 times at the 5 times as Seraph is walking up the train is not unreasonable, and with double stack, that's 20 regen. You're really close already to just winning off of that, right? And I recognize what I did there is I just spewed a lot of numbers at you, but if you're not able to follow along with that, and you want the simplified version of what I just said, essentially spreading spores multiplies. If you thin out the deck enough, by the later turns, your entire deck is spreading spores, and if you've upgraded it properly, it's going to apply in the range of 40 to 50 regen while the relentless boss is walking up. This plays into my next point, where in the worst cases, which is when you're going against Seraph the Chaste, it's easy to apply that big number of regen. The 32 number is where you -1 and you give it double stack. In the late game, if you thin your deck down to the point where you're able to draw through it twice, or in 2 turns, rather. So draw through the deck in 2 turns, meaning that, you know, however you did that, you have 12 cards and you draw 6, 14 cards, you draw 7, however you want to do it, right? After you play all your cards out, you can probably play through the deck about 4 more times before Seraph is upon you, and every time you do that, your spreading spores is doubling, which means that you start at 1, then you go to 2, then 4, then 8, and if you play 8 spreading spores over the course of 2 turns with double stack, that's 32 regen. Again, I just spewed a lot of numbers at you, but the takeaway from that, which is the simplified version of the first thing I said, is spreading spores doubles every time. If your deck is small enough, you will have a lot of this card. You'll apply a ton of regen to whatever's on your top 4. Now, the other part of this, the last pro I have here written down, it's something to do in your later turns, which is true. Usually once you play your units in a run, you need a card to spend your energy on, or cards to spend your energy on. This can be like a held over vent to clear backline, or a held over glimmer, or like engulfed in smoke, things like that, right? Endless cards, molded, depending on who you are, it changes. Spells, just like kill spells and Stygian. But in Awoken, what do you want to spend your energy on, right? The answer is typically regen, or if I clear regen out, it's just like, what else are you doing, right? You're playing stings, but those are free. You're probably just not doing anything. Razor Sharp Edge, maybe. Bramble Lash, maybe, but it's mostly just healing. And what better card to heal than Spreading Spores? The answer is a lot of them. You'll probably want to pair this with a strong healing card to keep your other unit alive. I should add to the cons list real quick. Give me 1 second. There we go. Just to keep the order here, I want to type that one out so that when we get to it, right? So, it's an answer to what am I doing now that I'm set up, right? You play your Husk Hermit on the bottom floor, you play your Sentient with your Animus of Will on the middle floor, you play your Thorned Hollow on the top floor, and then you go, okay, the enemies die. If I play enough regen, that's the card that plays regen. Or if you just heal enough, right? Trigger his spikes enough. But there's something to do, the other thing that it plays into is it plays into the fact that green is a very self-sufficient clan, where you can win by removing all of your other clan cards and just having green answer everything for you. Spreading Spores is one of the pieces to doing that. Let's get into the negatives. I think I've explained the positives enough, but really, when you get right down to it, the biggest thing to say about Spreading Spores is it's a card that says regen, and Awoken only has 4 of those, and regen is a really, really, really strong mechanic. Like, being able to heal every turn in Relentless is really strong. Now the cons. There are downsides to this that I need to point out. The first one is, as you can see, it doesn't kill heavies. Spreading Spores, Spikes 2, it takes a very long time for this card to ever do enough to kill heavies, right? an enemy with 190 health laughs at your spikes too. Even when it's like, oh, technically this is worth 4 spikes the first time I play it on Thorn Hollow because of the regen, he's not scaling fast enough. This card answers bosses. Killing heavies, in my opinion, killing 2 190 health enemies is the hardest thing to do in this game. And this card does not do that. You need to make sure you have another answer that is killing 190 health enemies. Whatever it is, that's not what this video is about. Just know that this card, even if you scale as fast as possible, it will not outpace those first 190 health enemies, so you need to be ready for that. It's expensive as well. It is 2 energy. That's a lot. At base value, this card is really bad. Like, this card is not good, because you're paying 2 energy for regen 2, and you pay 1 energy for regen 1. The rate is not good. It's like the standard rate, but you don't want a rare card that's as good as a starter card in terms of value. As I said in the last point, Spikes 2 is kind of negligible. However, it's expensive until you give it -1s, right? That's why the expensive con isn't that big of a deal, but you need to make sure that you can get to a Merchant of Magic before you need this card to carry you. And the other con, obviously, is rare. Like, this card, you are drafting, you're getting this out of a rare draft. Usually, it's a 3 in 16 to ever see it, so you don't get a whole lot of times to see it. However, it's really good still. Like, it's worth the rarity. It's rare for a good reason. This card wins you the game. But you won't see it all the time. And other things, like there's a few other things I want to point out as cons, which are just like, you gotta know when this card isn't gonna win you the game, right? You gotta be ready to understand, like, okay, Spreading Spores doesn't win me the game here. Now, I'm delaying because I'm trying to think of a situation where that doesn't happen. It happened to me recently in a video where it's like, you can't have too many things to be doing, right? Like, I was playing, it was the Stygian Umbra run, or Umbra Stygian, I believe, actually, either way, where I picked up Spreading Spores from a Draft a Rare Awoken card run, or a Draft a Rare Awoken card event, and the outcome was I couldn't play Spreading Spores. Even when I gave it -1 double stack, even at 4 energy, I had to spend all of my time generating morsels to keep myself afloat, and my Spreading Spores fell to the wayside. So, recognize you have to play with it enough to recognize those situations. I'm 400 hours in and I still thought that card was going to win me the game. But there are times where the card is not good when you already have something in the this is what I'm doing once I play my units category. And the last point here, the late addition, the thing that I just typed out, it doesn't keep multiple units alive. Spreading Spores is not a very strong healing card against burst damage. Spreading Spores is a card that wins you the relentless combat. This isn't a card that's like, okay, if I play 4 Spreading Spores here, this guy taking 70 damage doesn't die, because regen triggers at the end of combat. So you need to make sure you pair Spreading Spores with a good card to help you keep your units alive. There are roughly 3 of them: Awake, Focus Growth, and where is it? A Restoration Detonation as well, so roughly 4. Restoration Detonation and Unleash the Wildwood. Typically, what you're going to end up looking at is you're going to look at Spreading Spores as just being spammed as much as possible on your Thorned Hollow, and then on your other 4 you have your Sentient, who's going to need you to burst heal her like twice, right? That's about it. I think that's your reasoning for Spreading Spores. I think I illustrated it pretty well. I got a little into the numbers there, but it's really hard to explain why this card is so good without starting to explain how it doubles out of control, right? The card is, when you just look at it, super underwhelming. 2 energy, regen 2, spikes 2, but you get into those upgrades, you get into those like, oh, this doubled 3 times, so we're at 16 Spreading Spores in the deck, and they all give regen 4, and all of a sudden you go, oh, that's powerful. Oh, I just applied 32 regen in 3 turns in my Thorned Hollow now 1v1 Seraph. Yeah. It's a really good card, and it's made even better if you get 1 Wildwood Sap to get it started as well. But alone, it will not solo carry your entire run, but it will kill Seraph for you, as long as you can answer your other questions with certainty. Also, I guess I should have mentioned this. I hinted at it, but one other thing you're going to want to do to get max value out of Spreading Spores is make sure you put your unit that you're planning to Spreading Spores on the top floor. Just something to mention. I recognize just now that despite hinting at that, I never outright said that. But that'll do it. That's why I think Spreading Spores is a like top 3 card in the game. It's very strong. I don't really have a power ranking of all the cards in the game, but it's very high on the list. I think without a doubt in my mind it's top 5. But it's good. Make sure that when you play it, just try it out, right? The best thing you can do is try out these cards and learn. If you're like, I don't understand why Spreading Spores is so good. It's really good. Like, it's just a great card. Definitely try it out. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget, leave me a like. Subscribe if you want to see more, and also drop me a comment and tell me what other cards you want to do. On the way alongside this one, I should do a video about Paraffin Thug, and we'll see what else comes out of this. Feel free, any other cards you want me to talk about, I would be happy to. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you have a good one. Farewell.